This is Algebra 1, Lesson 9.7, Simplifying Rational Expressions. So first thing I want to talk about is what is a rational number. We talked about this at the beginning of the year. We said a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction, as a quotient of two integers. So what is not a rational number or irrational number? Some examples we talked about were pi or the square root of 2, any number that's non-repeating, non-terminating decimal. So if you take two of those rational numbers and change them into a fraction, then we have a rational expression. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify that rational expression, but just be careful. Remember, you can't have a zero in the denominator of a fraction. So when we simplify it, it means we're going to take out all their common factors, their greatest common factor, and the only thing they'll have in common after that is 1. So let's practice that. Okay, some of you might look at this and say 4 over 16. I know how to simplify that. I'm just going to take 4 into both of those. 4 goes in here once, 4 goes in here 4 times. This has 1x, this has 2x. And remember, x squared means x times x. We can cancel out one of the x. So we're left with 1 over 4x. And that is how you simplify a rational expression. It sounds a lot harder than it really is. If you would like to, you can always factor, just like we practiced when we're looking for the GCF. That's what we're canceling out, the greatest common factor. So if you take your 4x and you factor it, you get 2 times 2 times x. If you take your 16x squared, you get 2 times 8, 2 times 4, 2 times 2, and then we have 2 x's. So we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times x. And what do they have in common? 2 2's, so we cancel those out. They have 1 x in common, so we cancel that out. So what are we left on the top? Nothing but 1, just 1. You have to keep the 1 there to hold the place. And then what's left on the bottom? 2 2's and an x, and there it is, okay? So if you can see it, go ahead and simplify right away. If you can't see it, go ahead and factor and see what they have in common. What you cannot do is cancel out when it's addition. That doesn't work. It has to be multiplication. If you think of an example, say 2 times, let's see, 2 plus 3 over 2 plus 8. That gives us 5 over 10, which is 1/2. If we would say, hey, let's go ahead and cancel those 2's out, we're left with 3 over 8. 3 over 8 does not equal 1/2. So you're not allowed to simplify when it's addition, okay? It's only multiplication that we're allowed to simplify. All right, here we go. Factor again. If you can look at it and see right away, go ahead and do that. If you can't, what is 7 times x? 7's prime, so it's just 7 times x. If we factor 25, it's 5 times 5. And x squared is x times x. What do they have in common? Just 1x. That's it. So we're back to 7 over 5 times 5, or 25x, okay? Only what they have in common when you multiply. This one, we're going to factor this binomial. What does x and 2x squared have in common? They have an x in common, so we're going to factor out an x. And remember, you have to put that 1 in there to hold the place. And so I'm going to leave the 2 there, but I took one of the x's out, so I factored out an x out of this binomial. And the bottom I have x plus 2. So what do they have in common? Nothing. So that means this one is already simplified. All right, let's try this one. What can we factor out of this binomial? 3 and 18. If you think of 18, 3 and 6, 2 and 3. It looks like they have a 3 in common, so I'm going to factor out a 3. And they both have at least 1 x. So let's go ahead and take that x out too while we're here. So I took the 3 out, I took one of the x's out. That means I have 1 x left over. 3 times 6, we have that 6 left over. And I took 1 x out, so there's no x's left over. On the bottom, how can we factor 9? 9 is 3 times 3. X squared is x times x. That is a negative 9, so one of the 3's has to be negative. So I'm allowed to cancel. I have a negative 3, a positive 3, and 2 x's. So what can I cancel out? The 3's and one of the x's. What am I left with? On the top, I'm left with x minus 6. On the bottom, I'm left with negative 3 and one of the x's. And remember, you can't simplify that. That's addition. All right, let's try a couple more just to get the hang of it. Let's skip to the more difficult ones. What can I factor out of 15a minus 3? 15, if you break it down, you know it's 5 times 3, so it looks like they have a 3 in common. So I'm going to factor out a 3. That leaves 5a minus, remember we have to put the 1 there. If I break down 3, what is 3? 3 is 3 times 1, so I have to leave that 1 there to hold the spot. And 24. Is that a multiple of 3? Sure, 3 times 8 is 24, so on the bottom I have 3 times 8. And you can see I can cancel those 3's out. So on the top, I'm left with 5a minus 1. In the denominator, I'm left with 8. All right, let's do one more. I don't think you need help with the easy ones, but let's do some of the trickier ones. All right, here we go. All right, what can I factor out of the top? Nothing. X minus 4, there's nothing they have in common. On the bottom, it looks like they have a 3 in common, they have an x in common, and if you have trouble with that, just factor it. 3 times 4, and there you have your 3. So let's go ahead and end the top. We're just going to leave it as is. On the bottom, we're taking a 3 out, and it looks like they both have an x in common. That's my GCF, my greatest common factor for those two. So I'm left with 1x here. I'm left with a 4 here, and I took the x out, so I don't need that. If I would distribute that 3x, I better end up back where I started. So this one, it looks like we can cancel these out, but be careful. Remember, we have to put a 1 up there. We can't just move the 3x to the numerator. It's already in the denominator. So my answer for this one is 1 over 3x. All right. Please try the practice problems. We will be reviewing this week. I know we've learned a lot of new material, so we'll spend this week reviewing the new material. Have a good day, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.